Hey there, so I just want to take you through this section here with lineup and kind of just explain how you should be really utilizing these professionals moving forward over the next 6 weeks. So look, first and foremost, at the coalface is going to be your real estate agent network. So they should now be very, very clear around what it is that you're looking for based on your criteria sheet that you prepared last week. Now what you want to do is you really want to be creating accountability with your agent network, with your buyer's agent if you have one, and anyone out there who may be assisting you through this process. What I do recommend is that you lock in regular whips and just ask them. So would you be okay if we just caught up, say, every 2 weeks, just to check in on progress, just so that I can get a gauge of where you're at, whether any new opportunities have come through, just to follow up on any opportunities that you may have already brought to me that I'm working on. And the agents should be very receptive to this because ultimately it's only in their interests for them to be working with you and ultimately helping you get to what you want to achieve, because that's how they get paid. And so they'll like the accountability as well. And it only needs to be, say, 10 or 15 minutes on the phone. And let's say, for instance, if you've got, say, 4 or 5 agents that might be helping you out, it's really an hour and a half of your time, either weekly or fortnightly, that you need to then do this. So I like to sort of go back to back with my whip sessions. And so I sort of normally block out however long it's going to take me in an afternoon. I find afternoons are best for whips because mornings typically for me are where I'm most creative, and I don't like to take up creative time with normal sort of just mundane, regular, frequent sort of check-ins and meetings and those sorts of things. I tend to use the afternoons for those. And so you want to think about what sort of time of day is going to work best for you to have those sorts of check-ins with your agent network. Then when you do get opportunities starting to come through, this is really where you need to have pretty much your private town planner, whoever it is that you've chosen to work with moving forward. And you may have sort of 2 or 3 people, depending on how many opportunities you think you're going to be reviewing, that you might be working with. And so when a new deal comes through, if it's got any element of forced equity that may require a council planning approval, that may require certification from a private building surveyor or private certifier, then you're going to want to get some early advice from your private town planner, primarily on what are the planning zones, what are the overlays, what are the constraints of this site, what are the restrictions, and all of that. You also want to be making sure that you're doing all of your service location checks. So as we talk through in the Deal Diggers sessions each month, you want to be following that process to a T, because you've got to be reviewing all of these opportunities as they come through, making sure you're running them to ground in alignment with your private town planner. Now, let me start by saying you don't want to send every single deal to your private town planner. I want you to think of your professional team as almost like having credits. If you went to a time zone, you've got a certain amount of credits on your little card. You don't want to just go and tap on every single machine and waste all of your credits like in the first 5 minutes. You want to be highly selective around what games you play and how you can achieve the most amount of points for every single game played. And the credits that you've got with each town planner, I mean, while they're not definitive, you don't want to be sending and wasting their time by sending them opportunities ongoingly. So you want to be running your deals through your scorecard and your high-level feasibility first before you're sending them on to your private town planner. Because if it's past the sniff test, then it's worthy of having a town planner review it. Because if they're doing it for free or as a little bit of a sort of a freebie in order to get you as a client or to get you on to do the work, well, you don't want to waste those opportunities just on deals that don't actually stack up. So you should get very good and comfortable at doing the first review, and only then the deals that fall out the bottom that are getting a gold star should you then pass on to your private town planner. Once your private town planner has been able to kind of summarize, hey, look, this is where we think you can go, this is where we think you can't go. And this is typically for creating a new building envelope. It might be for enhancing the existing dwelling. Maybe you're putting an extension on the back. Potentially you might be relocating that dwelling on the block to make way for a new parcel of land to subdivide. If you are going through the subdivision or the strata titling process, you'll want to be running all these opportunities to ground with your private town planner before then sending it on to your building designer. Once you've got a very clear set of parameters and guidelines from your private town planner, that's when you can engage your building designer to give you a little bit of a mud map, which gives you a bit of an example as to what might come back from your building designer to give you some idea of what can be achieved as a building envelope. Because it's not until then that you can then start to really have a look at what does my building envelope and what could I achieve on the land for my strategy. Because at that point, until you know that, let's say for instance it's 250 square meters of building area on the ground floor, after all of the front setbacks, side setbacks, rear setbacks, working around trees and other constraints and easements and all of those sorts of things are then taken into account. Well, you won't know that until a building designer's interpreted it through the private town planner to then give you some idea. And it's then that we go back to our feasibility and then start to make adjustments on the type of product and the sizing that we can create to then start to get some feedback back from our real estate agents on resale value. And then also sitting down with our builders and the people who are going to help us actually create the new building or the extension or the alteration to the existing, that we can start to work out what it's going to cost us. There's a big difference between building a 300 square meter home versus a 150 square meter home. They could both be 3-bedders, however, one costs a lot less than the other. And one might sell for a lot more, or maybe it won't. But we've got to check all of these things and then run it back through our feasibility. And so this is what you want to be doing with your team. Each and every time a deal passes through your scorecard, it's got good, strong green lights saying, hey, this requires more effort and interrogation. Then you run it back through your team to go to a bit more finer grain detail here. You can also then be hitting on your builders to get some responses from them as well. Once you've also got your building envelope, whether that be, say, a project builder who might be able to do some siting on the plan for you with some of their recommended templates that they've already got. It could be a local builder that does more custom design. So if you're building something that's got to be designed custom through your designers because of the shape of the block or the size of the block or the fact that it's a battle axe block behind an existing. If a project builder won't look at it because it's got variation and it's got differences and it's just not straight cookie cutter, well then you can be talking to your local builders there that you've been building relationships with as well and start to get some rough ideas around square meter rates, what it might look like to cost. You start to break up that cost with all the additional stuff like driveways and landscaping and so on and so forth. So that sort of concludes that section there in terms of now how you want to be just rinsing and repeating your deals through a proven system that is going to help give you a lot of confidence around what your offer should be and what you can afford to pay for the property that is in question. So if you've got any questions around that, please don't hesitate to contact us, bring it up on our weekly coaching sessions or send it through on the local hangout on the members forum. We'll be happy to hear and help you through it. Bye for now.